What is up, guys? Today I will be going through very briefly and easily on how to make a basic chill step beat with sub bass and melody included. Now in the video I might be having VSTs that you don't have, but the principle and basic concept will be the exact same, so don't worry about that. The VSTs I am using in the video, however, are NI Massive and REFX Nexus, and the drum sounds are all standard that comes with FL, so you don't have to download anything for that. Now, before I start, I want to give you guys an example on how it might sound once we are done. Yours might sound exactly like mine, depending on if you use the same sounds, etc. But this guide is mainly to show you the basic steps and easy approach on it all. There's a lot more to it if you wish to seek it, but this is just like the surface of it all and a very simplistic tutorial on a potentially complex style. So before I start showing you how it's done, let me give you an example of how it might sound once we're actually completely done. Alright, so that's basically what I made. I made this very quickly just to try to show you guys that the concept itself is fairly simple, even though it might feel like it's very difficult or whatever you might believe. Now obviously, like I said, there's a lot more to it, so this is just a very basic of everything. You could be adding different snares, different hi-hats, different crashes, different kicks, everything like that. So this is mainly just how you can easily and quickly make up a chill step ground if you want to make a Chillstep song, basically. So let's get right into it, guys. Alright, so the first thing we want to do, obviously, we want to create a new project. I'm going to create an entirely new thing from this. I'm not going to be using what I have made here. I'm going to be using the same sounds, but I'm going to be creating a completely new project here. So the first thing we want to do, we already have the kicks, the claps, the hi-hats, and the snare. We're going to drag them all down so they do not have a mixer track, because we're later going to be fixing that. Not too much in depth in this tutorial, just very briefly. Second thing you want to do is you want to create a little kick kind of pattern. So the first thing you want to do here, you want to fill every one of 4 bars is enough for now. I mean, obviously, depending on what what pitch you want it, I just set it to C5 because that's, you know, where it should be, quote unquote. And we'll stick with that. The second you want to go on to is the snare. You want to have that on every third. So when you play it, it's going to be sounding something like this. Now, it's a very familiar pattern if you are, you know, if you listen to a lot of chill step and melodic dubstep, whatever it could be that you're listening to. The second we want to do is create a hi-hat pattern. Now, this is something that you could experiment with a lot, so it's really up to you how you do it. I'm going to try to come up with something very basic and simple right here, right now, so I might fast forward or do something depending on how quick this goes. So let's just, if you want to copy, that's completely fine, but this is just, you know, completely up to you. Once you have your, oops, my bad, Jesus Christ. Once you have your basic kind of pattern down, you really just want to copy that and paste it onto the next area, because you don't want, I mean, obviously, yes, you can put some, you know, varieties in there, and obviously throughout the song you will be having those, but in general you want to stick to the same kind of patterns in most things, actually, even in the melodies, the chords, the bass lines, and everything like that. So what we have right now will be sounding something like this. Now, oops, my bad. Now, oops. The one thing I would recommend if you want to change or vary anything, Jesus, what am I doing? Would be in the last 8 bars, or preferably the last 4 bars, really. So instead of it going like that in the end, for example, that we could go, so that goes a little bit faster. For example, you know, we're all just playing around, trying to figure out what's going to be best for the song. Now, that is our drum pattern. We don't need to do anything more with it as of right now. We will be doing some adjustments later on, but for now, that's basically the basic pattern that we're going to use for this tutorial. Now, the next thing you want to do, you want to right-click on one of these sounds, you want to go insert, and like I said before, we will be using Nexus and Massive. So the first thing we want to do, we want to go to Nexus, or whatever preset you have. You can use Harmor, you can use whatever that thing is called. It's called Harmless. One of those is fine as well. What we're looking for right now is a synth that goes something along, what I recommend, something along the lines of a sound like this. A very high-pitched saw sound, simply because that is what you're going to be hearing, basically powering through the entire song, if that makes any sense. I will demonstrate by throwing in some chords here, and you're probably going to be recognizing it a lot, because this is basically what every single Chillstep melodic dubstep song uses. Not all, but the majority of them. So let's create a chord progression. You do you. If you want to copy mine, that's completely fine, but I'm going to fast forward a little bit here just so it doesn't take up the entire video. Alright, so now that I have my chord progression down, what I'm going to be doing, because obviously this sound specifically is very, very loud, so I'm just going to turn down the volume a little bit, and more than likely this is something that you want to do on your sound as well, because it's not going to be the main thing that you want to listen for, it's just going to be something that's filling out the background of everything else. So you want to usually turn down the volume a little bit, not too much though, because, you know, obviously you want to hear it. So let's have a listen to it and adjust the volume accordingly. Alright, that sounds pretty good. Now, I will show you mine if you haven't seen it already. It's a very, very, very basic and straightforward chord progression. It's basically what we're going to be using throughout the entire song or the entire video. You know, you've heard this a million times before, this type of chord progression, whether it be here. You know, you hear it everywhere. But we're going to keep it right where we had it. The second step you want to do, you want to make a new create a new instrument, if you may. This time we will be doing the sub bass. So the VST I'm going to be using is a Massive, or Native Instrument Massive. Going to be pressing it, popping it up here. Now there is a preset that I love to use for my sub basses, and well, basically sub bass because it's a sub bass, is the one called let me see if I can get it. There we go. It's called 3-octave sub. Now this is basically exactly what it sounds like. It's a sub bass that uses 3 octaves. And what you want to do with this one, you just want to follow. You want to follow obviously your chord progression, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the exact same as the chord progression. But I do recommend it if you want to set a nice little theme to it. So let me do that, and you can copy whatever I am doing. Alright, so now that we have that down, we have the sub bass, we have the power chords, or whatever you want to call them, and we have the drum pattern. Now the next part we're going to do here, it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with melodies or anything like that. What we're going to be doing is creating a side chain. If you don't know what a side chain is, it's something that's also super common within the whole, basically the entire dubstep and a lot of techno and the whole EDM kind of genre. A side chain is basically whenever something hits, for example a kick in this case, everything else kind of goes down in volume. Now in this case we would be doing the sub bass and the chords. The way we do this is we go to the mixer right here. We will select one of these channels. Make sure only one of them is selected because we want to keep them on 2 different channels here. So select, for example, Massive. We will right click whichever channels of these are here. We're gonna, for this example, we're gonna have insert number 1. Right click it. We're going to be going to channel routing and route selected channel to this track. This basically means that Massive is going to go into channel 1. Now you could also do this by scrolling like this. You can see that it's now at 2, and this track would be going to insert number 2. But for me, it's just easier to know to route the channel to the specific mixer track, because it will also say the name of it. If I just do this, it's not going to say the name of the specific channel that is routed to that channel. So the next step we're going to do, we're going to take the Nexus or the chords, we're going to route them to insert number 2, do the exact same. And then the third step we're going to do the exact same but for the kick. So select the kick, go to number 10 or something else. It doesn't really matter which one. Route that as well. Now here comes the important part, is you want to go to one of these FX slots. Doesn't matter which one, because, you know, there's no real priority here. Select the one called Fruity Peak Controller. Now this might look a little weird. You don't really have to do anything with this. I would recommend pressing off the mute though, because otherwise you're not going to hear anything. Then you want to go back. You want to go back to one of these, or actually both, but we started with a massive one. We right click on the volume knob that's right here. Go to link to controller, press that, and here is basically where we select what the massive and the Nexus will be sidechaining to, and in this case it would be the kick. So we would go to this where it says internal controller, we would press that, and we would go to peak controller, peak plus LFO. Press that, basically meaning that it's going to route to the peak FX on the kick. We want to go to where you have like this straight or angled bar. Press the down arrow, press inverted. Remember, then you press accept. You do the exact same for Nexus. So we right click the volume, link to controller, peak LFO, go down on this menu, press inverted, accept. So now what's basically going to happen is, if we've done everything right, whenever the kick hits, these two will go down in volume. So let's check and let's play to see what happens. As you can see, they're doing the exact job like they should be doing. Now, if you feel like one of these things, I'm just going to turn the volume down a little bit on these sub bass. If you feel like you would want to adjust this how much volume goes down, you would go to the kick channel, press the P controller, so you get this. Let me just close this so it doesn't confuse you guys. You would get this window right here. Now, the volume knob is where you want to go up or down, depending on how much you actually want the sidechain to have an effect on. So if we play this as we are tuning the volume, you will see in the mixer here on the right side, these two knobs will be going up and down. So as you can see, when I have it set to 0 or in the middle, straight up, nothing happens with the volume knobs. Soon as I start turning it upwards or to the right, you will see that the more I turn it, the higher or lower the volume goes whenever the kick hits. Now this is something that you adjust to your song, how much ever that you want it, but I recommend not going too hard, because then it would kind of, you know, it would create this weird empty space of nothing but a kick. So I would recommend something in the middle where you feel comfortable with everything being there at once. Moving on to, now that we have the kick and basically the sidechain down for the more important parts, we're going to be creating the melody. Now, for this, I would highly recommend a piano sound, just a beautiful piano sound, whichever you can find. I know that there are some VSTs out there, for example, Nexus, that have a really, really good one. So if you do have Nexus, follow along here. If you don't, that's completely fine. Just find something that you like yourself. So we right-click Nexus, we go to Insert, because we don't want to replace it. We want to insert a new Nexus channel right here, Nexus instrument. We want to go down to Pianos right here, and then pick whichever one you want. For this, oh my Jesus. For the example, we will be using the Diggy Piano. Now, like I said, it doesn't matter which one you use, just pick whichever one you really like. Now, what we're going to create now is the melody. Chillstep and melodic dubstep, I hope I pronounced that right, melodic or melodic, I don't know. They're very, very simple. They are, well, usually they're very, very simple. There are some cases that are a bit more complex, but in general, they're very simple. All you want to do, you want to create a super simple kind of melody that goes with the chords. So we'll just want to have a listen to the chords and just kind of listen along and create something that matches. And by the way, I did not mention this before, but the chords, they should be high-pitched. They're not supposed to be down here. They want to be somewhere up here where you can really feel that, you know. Same goes for the melody. Oops. You do not want to have too low. You want to have somewhere up here to create that really holy feeling, that Jesus feeling, you know. So copy me if you want to. That's completely fine. If you don't, that's completely fine too. All right, now that you have created, now that you created your melody, depending obviously how you did it, it could be sounding something like mine, which is like this. Or it could be sounding something that you made yourself. It doesn't really matter as long as you are happy with it. But like I said, you see, there's not a lot of variety here. Obviously, there's some ups and downs, but there's not too much really going on. I'm really just following the chords and what notes there in the chords. Obviously, you could just do this way simpler, or you could do it just like I've done. Or you could do something completely different. Now, what we're gonna do, we're gonna copy everything, and we're going to be making a second section of this. We're gonna throw that right in there. We're gonna do the exact same for everything. So nothing is going to be any different for now. Until we've copied everything and everything is in its place. This is the kick, that's right. And then we go to the hat. Now you are seeing that I'm not adding any claps, and you know, that's all personal preference. If you want to have claps, that's completely up to you. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of claps. Obviously, depending on what song I do, but usually snares for me is just fine. Now that we've copied everything, obviously we should be making some changes within the melody. Usually it's been in the last 8 bars, like we mentioned in the with the hi-hats before. What we could be doing as well, we could be keeping this style and changing this as well to make this even more simple. Or we could be changing this to make it either go higher or lower in tone. It's completely up to you. So let me adjust mine and we will get back right into it in a couple of seconds. Alright, so now that I've made some changes to it, you can see that I made the first part, the initial part, much more simple than what we had in the beginning. I kept the whatever, the second part, I kept that exact same like we had it in the beginning to kind of make it so that it's a little bit different from the first part. Now, this is very important because when you actually build up the song later on, you really do need some variety in everything that you do, more or less. Even though I said everything should be fairly similar and simple, this is needed to create some adventure in your song. So let's have a listen to what I have so far. Alright, cool. One of the things I would recommend doing, it doesn't really matter what order you do this in, but I would really suggest that, seeing as when you've actually applied the P controller, the volume knobs on this part right here, they're going to go up a lot. So I would suggest that you either bring down the master volume a little bit, not too much though, just a tad bit, or that you actually bring down the individual channel volumes. Now, obviously there's different pros and cons with this. I would suggest bringing down the actual channel or the VST or instrument volume themselves, because that means if you turn down the master volume, you're going to be controlling everything. But if you only turn down these ones, that's only going to be controlling that, so you don't have to worry about the volumes on the kick, clap, etc., whatever you might have. So I would suggest just kind of messing around with that a little bit just to make sure that everything sounds right and it's not peaking too much. So let me show you a little bit on how you would adjust this. I was adjusting the wrong one this entire time. Alright, now that we have, messed around a little bit with that, it doesn't really matter how much you do it, just put it so that it's not too high in volume, because obviously the more instruments and stuff that you put in at the same time, the louder it's going to get. So just make sure you find a nice kind of mix between all of that stuff. What we have right now is basically the foundation of our song. We have a simple drum pattern with hi-hats, snares, and kicks, and we have our sub bass, we have our little melody, and we have our chords. Now, obviously, you will be adding a lot more to all of this when you're actually making your final song. Like I said in the beginning, this tutorial is only for creating the very, very basic stuff and to show you guys pretty easily on how to make a basic beat. Now, what we're gonna do, we're gonna experiment a little bit with this. We're gonna insert the pattern into our playlist here. What we're gonna do next is we're going to go to our packs that we have. Now, obviously, you guys might have different packs and everything like that, and I do respect that. This is only to experiment a little bit. We are more or less done with everything now, so, you can leave now if you want to. But regardless, we are going to be moving on to some effect stuff and to kind of make the song a little bit more cool. So we want to go to, I've saved some of my favorite packs and everything. So I'm going to go to effects. We're going to find an up sweep. We're going to be finding a down sweep. And we're also going to be finding a impact. So I have all of my stuff here. Now it's just a matter of choosing which one I want. And I know I want the 37 because actually, never mind. Actually, yes, I do. I want the 37. I'm going to go and adjust this bad boy. Yoink. And then we're going to do this as well. I don't want it to be too long. And then just like this, and then we're going to have a listen to how it sounds. It sounds pretty cool. Now, something I forgot to mention before was the crash that we need. It's very important to have a crash because it creates a very nice feeling, if that makes any sense at all. So we're going to find our crash. Now, it doesn't really matter what crash. It's all a matter of opinion. I'm just going to be using this one because it sounds pretty decent. We're going to throw it in the beginning. Whoops, right there. And then we're going to be listening to this again. Sounds pretty okay with a crash. Now, what we also want, we want an impact hit, basically at the start of our dubstep-y part. So just choose whichever one you feel like is a nice one. I'm gonna go with this one right here. This is actually the one I used in the song that I showed in the beginning, the example. Now, you don't want it to be too loud, obviously. Just put it somewhere where it's not overwhelming for the rest of the stuff. So let's have a listen to see how it sounds. Actually, before we do that, I'm just gonna... There we go. Sounds pretty good. Now, obviously, there's a lot more to, like I said, that you could do with this. For example, you could put a wobble bass, which Massive is a great VST to use if you want to do that stuff. But like I said, if you want to do just very, very basic stuff, I hope that this tutorial has helped you out. Thank you so much, guys, for watching the video. If it did if it did help you, make sure to hit that like button, and I hope to see you some other time whenever I decide to post another video, which might never happen, but who knows? We will see. Peace out, guys.